So thank you all for having me today. I am excited. As was mentioned in my bio, I am a proud Rowdy Raider alum, and so being able to be on campus as one of the key partners has really been a big thing for us, and it's always exciting for us to come out and do what I like to say, talk about how we can respect our money, and that's respecting our wallet, respecting our credit, respecting our future, just some things that we can think about. So today, what I'm going to talk about is, as students, what we can do to really focus on getting a good start today to ensure that as we have to get into the life of adulting, we're able to manage it from our pocket standpoint. And so what I like to call it are 5 things that I wish I knew, or at least listened to while I was in college. Some of the things I talk about oftentimes aren't things that are secrets or surprises. We know what we should be doing, but in the grand scheme of classes and midterms and going from codependence to independence, there's things we just don't listen to necessarily. And so over the next few minutes, I want to share with you the top 5 things I wish I knew and listened to. And then I want to find out from you all what burning questions you may have and of things that you may want to know, so hopefully you can listen to them today and in the future. So that's what I plan to do over the next few minutes. If you have any questions at any point, please feel free to interject. I definitely like to talk, but I don't have to be the only one talking. So please let me know if you have any questions. So the first thing I always like to talk to students about is that an early start is a great start. The bottom line is this: as a country, we're facing some grave truths. Over half of Americans don't have anything saved for retirement. Excuse me, that's 76%. Over half of Americans don't have anything saved in an emergency fund. When I say anything, $400 cash. If you think about what $400 will do for us, $400 is a blown tire. $400 is a trip to an emergency room. $400 is a quick trip home for spring break. $400 isn't a huge amount, but working Americans, people that go to work every day, don't have that in the case of an emergency. Add that to over half of Americans not having $1,000, which obviously if they don't have 4, we don't have 1,000 in the case of a big emergency. We're basically in a grave place when it comes to our saving and preparing for the future. Not really a surprise, but it's a reality that I like to share. Part of that is because we have culturally been very heavily driven by credit, and very driven by obtaining credit, using credit, how much credit, what's our credit score. You watch TV today, the coolest commercials are from Credit Karma, and I forget the tax company now that has a credit commercial. I mean, it's cool to know your score, which it is. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But it's cool to know your score. It's cool to have a high score. But the reality is high scores are really what just allow us to access credit. And so we have culturally become a country that is very accepting, loving, and driven by how we manage credit. And obviously, as a representative of a credit union, a financial institution, when you manage credit, we love it because it benefits our organization as well. But that's not the only purpose that it serves. And so we want to be mindful that we don't, as a result of managing credit, end up in debt cycles. And so that brings me back to why an early start is a great start. And that's when it comes to saving. We want to start as early as we can, building a healthy habit of saving, no matter how much or how little it is. My favorite quote is from Arthur Ashe that says, "Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can." Because it's not really about how much you do or don't have, it's what you do with it that counts. And so I always like to encourage, even as a starving college student, take advantage of free lunches and keep a little extra in your pocket, put it in a savings account where it can grow. And that's because students are in what I like to call the sweet spot. So when you think about financial independence, the sweet spot is that period between 18 and 24 where you are kind of shifting from mom and dad's rules about your money to your own rules about your money. You're shifting from mom and dad's beliefs and backgrounds about money and habits about money to your own habits when it comes to money. And so the earlier you can start to build those and build upon those, the better off you are. Also, you're in what's called our financially establishing years. So from a financial institution's mindset, you're in the first place where we're starting to look at you exclusive of your parents. What does that mean? When it comes to getting credit, you still may have to have a co-signer, but we're looking at you and what you can do. Do any of you know the age that you first obtained your first credit score? Speaking of the credit score, it's actually 18 and a half. So 6 months after you turn 18, you actually have a reported credit score. And so, again, thinking about financial independence is the first time you start to be viewed outside of your mom and dad when it comes to how you handle or how you're going to be able to access financial opportunities. So very important that we think about it that way. It's also the first time, if you're going to campus, that you're away from your parents for any kind of time. And even if you've worked a part-time job, it may be the first time that you've been left without anybody helicoptering, like I tend to do with my 16-year-old on how he handles his money, over what you're going to be doing from time to time. So it's the sweet spot. It's the perfect opportunity to take that, and it could either go really well or go really bad. I always tell my son, listen, when you go to college, don't let me have to put my ringer on an alert to say don't answer when you call. I don't mind that you're gonna call, but I don't want it to, give me the because I know you're calling to always fix the mistakes, But we're gonna have them, right? And so because we're in that financially establishing sweet spot. The other part of the sweet spot is that if we start now developing a habit of saving, it can give us what we need to retire comfortably, and that's our first $1 million. Does anybody know how much it would take each month to retire, to have $1 million by the time you're in the next 4 years, so by the time you're about 65, depending on how old you are?
$100?
About $100? What's your guess?
I don't know, it depends on interest rate and all that, so.
Would you guys like to guess about how much you think you need a month? About $100? So yeah, so that's the good news. So about $100, or what I say, about a quarter of a Starbucks a day, right? If we think of it in terms of day-to-day spending, for less than a Starbucks a day, we could be on the track toward what I like to say is your first $1 million. The reality is this: the way that retirement looked for our parents, the way that retirement looks for us, and the way that retirement will look for our students in the next 10 years is changing. We have to get really, really excited and serious about not only enjoying today, but what we're doing for tomorrow. And that doesn't mean we can't enjoy today. That just means that we have to be mindful of it. In fact, all we have to be mindful of is about $3 a day, about a trip to the vending machine a day. And that's good news, right? Because it's not really about big amounts in a small amount of time. It's the power of time that works in our favor. And so for about a quarter of a Starbucks a day, we could be on our way to our first $1 million. And it's great that we start thinking that way and building the habit of, you know what? I only have $10, but I'm going to pop 2 to 3 of it in a savings account where it can grow some interest, where it can work for me over time, and then over time move that into an investment tool, and then ta-da, I hit for my first $1 million. My last name doesn't have to be Kardashian. It doesn't have to be James. I don't need a big contract. I just need the healthy habit of saving. And again, understanding that I'm in the sweet spot and an early start is a good start. I solely wish somebody told me this. I worked at a dry cleaners when I was in high school. And I made a lot of money, but I spent a lot of money. And I actually remember coming on campus, and my worst spend while I was a student here was on a pair of jeans that cost me $80 that you couldn't pay me $80 to put on today. First of all, because I can't fit them anymore. But also because the reality is, for that time, they were great, and then it was gone. It was over. So I think about that time of how much money I made and how much money I spent. It's not that I was a millionaire, but the reality was, in that sweet spot, I was definitely making more than I was responsible for paying for, and I wish I would have taken advantage of that. If somebody can come up, I want to show you why I wish I would have taken advantage of that. Can I borrow someone? Somebody that's, I won't do too much. You're just going to be holding some things for me. What's your name?
Maggie.
Hi, Maggie. I'm Maggie. So, Maggie, here's why I wish I would have taken advantage of that sweet spot a lot sooner than I did. Because at 35, I'm just now getting it as I walk the talk and teach others about it. The reality is, when it comes to expenses, what I like to tell my sons, as I try to be cool and talk in a language that will let them laugh and at least hear me, is your bills turn up way before they turn down. And that's just the truth. So the reality is, as an adult, the more adulting you do, your bills will increase for quite a while before they decrease. And that's just kind of the nature of it. Your family may grow, your career expectations and goals grow, and with that come the bills, right? And so tell me, Maddie, what bills do you have today that you're responsible for?
I don't have any because I'm just vacating, but
Okay. So do you have, do you drive a car?
no.
Do you catch the bus?
No, my brother.
Your brother?
But I
Okay.
do pay for like
Some gas?
Yeah, and I pay for like the college expenses, so like lunch.
Okay, so there's your lunch, and there's a little bit of gas.
Okay.
And do you have a cell phone?
Yeah.
So you've got your cell phone, potentially a cell phone bill. So, and then in general, for college students, that's kind of, you might have a car. A college student may have a car, right? That's kind of where it stops at 18. But let's think about when you turn 24 or so and you're headed on your way either to grad school or potentially your first career move. What additional expenses may have developed between that point and then? Renting a house, because now I don't live on campus anymore. And if I rent a house, what do I also need for when I rent that house? Renter, oh yeah, furniture, you have to sit on something. But you have to have, in most places, renter's insurance, okay? So now we've got insurance. Probably we've gone from eating more than lunch to actually being in an apartment and fixing multiple meals per day. So we're gonna add a little bit more to your groceries. If you've gone from a lovely college student attire to now you're working in an office, you're gonna need clothes for that, right? So let's add a few of those things. And oh, by the way, you live on your own, so you will wanna make sure that you can pay for electricity, sometimes gas as well.
Sorry.
That over there. What about, let's see, you have utility, car insurance. Is now by now she's bought her own car because she's really cooking with fire now. So, and the car note potentially because maybe you didn't buy it, you financed it. So now we have that to take care of. And that's at 24, 25. Do you get your hair done any?
Yeah.
So we want to live, right? A little bit of entertainment to enjoy. So we see already, Maddie's doing a great job balancing this. I'm actually pretty impressed. So Maddie already has 1, 2. Oh, so okay, she knew her car note was due, and so she didn't get her hair done that week. We're gonna give Maddie her hair appointment back, right? So Maddie's balancing this very, very well. But the reality is, this is 25. By 35, there's that hair again. She just decided to shave it. She just said, forget it, I'm not going back to this. By 35, this could more than double. And that's because as we grow, our families grow, our responsibilities grow. And so again, going back to building a healthy savings habit, what a savings habit does for us is make sure that as that grows, we have options of where we're putting everything so that as we need to expend it and use it, we know we have options of where we're pulling it from. But if we don't have anywhere to pull it from and we don't have that healthy habit, we have the habit of spending, then as we get it, we don't know how to juggle it all, so to speak. And I would guarantee you, as well as Maddie's doing, if I added probably another 10 on here, it'd get a little difficult, right? And so that's the value of building a healthy savings habit. It gets us in the habit of taking care of business before life starts to happen and those bills turn up. And as they do, we have a plan for it so that we're in control of it. Thank you, Maddie. I'll grab you whatever follows. Thank you. You can give Maddie a round of applause for her interview time. So that's that sweet spot. So I talk about the habit of saving. What are we saving for when we're saving? We're saving primarily for 3 things. We're saving for when life happens, because Murphy's Law says if it can happen, it will happen, and potentially at the worst time, right? And so we're saving for the reality that life is happening. We're going to need to be able to have a little stash of something when things happen. Like I said, it could be the tire blowing out. It could be a quick trip out of town for an emergency. It could be a quick trip to the emergency room. Your cell phone could break. How much does it cost when a cell phone breaks? A couple hundred almost now, I think. I was very appalled before Christmas when my phone cracked to the point of non-use and I had to get a new phone, and they're like, oh, you can rent one, but you have to pay your $200 insurance, and I was just appalled. But in the technology age we live in, what did I do? I paid $200 to get my phone repaired, you know, and thankfully I had it to do, but that wasn't a fun $200 to have to pay. Life happens, and life is happening every day. If we're living, life is going to happen. In fact, Money Magazine shares that over a 5-year period, 76% of Americans will experience an emergency. It's going to happen. Something's going to pop up, right? And so you want a life happens pot that takes care of when those things are coming up. So for college students, that life happens pot should be about $500 to start. If it's not $500, again, it's really about building the habit of putting something away that you're not necessarily touching unless you need, but $500 to start. And then to bump that up, if you make $26,000 or more, what we call a starter emergency fund, but I call it the starter life happens fund, is $1,000. And then eventually that'll grow to 3 to 6 months of money saved for expenses when things come up. But what I want you all to think about is just to start off with starting to build a cushion that maybe with a goal of about $500 that is money that you don't touch. This is, I'm in an emergency, I really need to be able to go to my stash. And for you all, the emergency might be, it's the end of the semester and I've expended my meal plan and now I have 1 more week that I need to be able to sustain. That could be an emergency. But it's not for, oh man, it's Friday night, I didn't want to cook, so let me grab a pizza. It's not that emergency, although sometimes that feels like an emergency. Oh, it really does. So that's your Save for Life Happens pot. The second pot you want to save for is save for your plans. So as I just kind of showed you, over the next few years, things will start to increase. What plans do you have? What goals do you have? And what costs are going to be associated with those goals? If you want to relocate, you want to start to explore what the cost of living where you want to be might be, what the different things are. If you live in Ohio, you know that you need everything from a flip-flop to a boot, potentially in one season, potentially in one day, right? And so you have to prepare your wardrobe for that. Down in Florida might not have quite the same situation, but you want to be mindful of that. What is the cost of living in certain places? What does a $20,000 job look like in Chicago compared to a $20,000 job in Dayton, Ohio? What does that get you? Because it looks a lot different. What you can do with $20,000 in Dayton is a lot different than what you can do with $20,000 in Chicago. And so you want to start to think of that and plan for that and save for those things. Finally, you want to save for your dreams, because it wouldn't be fun to keep talking about all this grown-up adulting stuff all the time. I'll tell you this. At 90 years old, my grandma was 29 years old every year from what she told us, because in her mind, she's going to live to dream. She was still dreaming at 90 when she passed away. And I say that no matter how old or young you are, old at heart, young at heart, whatever you want to call it, always continue to prioritize saving for your dreams. So I challenge you all, for the first part of saving for your dreams is to do what I call your first $1 million account. My 16-year-old son just got his first job at Chick-fil-A. Of course, because I work at Wright-Patt, and like most children do, follow their parents for when they open their first account, right? We go and open up his first account, and I had him name his savings account my first $1 million. Because guess what? It felt a little fun and cool to say he was saving for his first $1 million than to me to say you need an emergency fund. That wasn't fun, right? But because I told him he was saving to hit his first $1 million, and we always talk about the little, how much do you think you need? How much do you think you need? Oh, that was one of the most exciting days of getting paid for him from his first job, because he wasn't looking at it like a responsibility. He was looking at it like a goal that he was getting ready to be in charge of achieving. And so I encourage you all, set up your first $1 million account. Or if you already have a savings account, rename it My First $1 Million. It totally changes your mindset about what you're doing with what you put in there. It's kind of, how many of you are like, what do you do? Oh, I'm just saving for my first $1 million. You know, that kind of has a ring to it. Like, man, you're saving for $1 million. You're in college though. How do you do that? Psh, I just don't drink my Starbucks every day. I cut it down to 3 a week, you know, or whatever your thing is, right? For me, it's Kohl's visits. I had to cut my Kohl's visits because Kohl's Cash and I have a love-hate relationship. I had to break up with Kohl's Cash. But whatever your thing is, you cut it down a little and put it in your first $1 million pot. I'm saving for my second $1 million because I spent my first $1 million on a lot of stupid things like DKNY jeans that I wouldn't pay somebody to have me wear again, right? So whatever it is, you put that up, you open that account, and you save for your dreams. Maybe your dream is to travel. Maybe your dream is to graduate from college and continue in school until you get your PhD. Save for your dream. Maybe your dream is to make a change for a country and build schools in a country. Start saving for your dream today. Even while you're scheduling and tutoring and studying for your midterm. Pop $2 in for your dream. It will make such a difference when the balls of life get to jumbling in your basket and you're trying to remember what made a difference. Don't stop dreaming and always put something in there to prioritize for that. The next thing I want you to remember, speaking of putting it somewhere, is that you have choices. How many of you have an account already open somewhere? I would assume most, right? And what was it that got you your first account? When you opened your first account? About how old were you? About 10 or 11? So I would assume mom and dad were involved in there some kind of way. Somewhere between 10 and 16, most people either open an account or there's an account open for them. If it doesn't happen then, usually by the time students get to college, because one of two things happen. You graduate from high school and grandma sends you that nice birthday check and you've got to put it somewhere. Mom and dad finally say, okay, you can have your own account. Or you get a first job and it happens that way. Or you come to Wright State and you don't have anything and they say, oh, there's a Wright-Patt over there on campus. Let's open up so we can put money in your account. Somewhere along the line, something happens and there's an influence to open an account. What I want you all to know is that you have choices in where you can take care of your financial business, right? There's different kind of accounts and there's different institutions to do that with. Now, the nice thing about me is I don't have to do a whole lot of selling your why Wright-Patt gets to be the account of choice. We love you all. You're our partner on campus. I can say that and move along. What's important is whether it's Wright-Patt or someone else, you have to always know that you have choices when it comes to the types of accounts that you have and use. So there are all types of savings accounts, and some are for that day-to-day life happens savings. And then you have what are called money market accounts that are a little bit longer term. Those are for those things like saving for your first million, a little bit longer. And then you go into investment tools. Even with checking accounts, there are checking accounts that come with no fees. There are checking accounts that come with a fee, but you can't overdraft. What's overdraft mean? Can't bounce a check, right? Or you can't spend more than you have in there. It won't let you do it. There are checking accounts that if you keep so much in there, you can earn interest. You earn extra money on it. There's all these different tools and accounts. Credit cards. There's first-time credit cards, secure credit cards, unsecured credit cards that give you rewards, credit cards that pay you back. There's so much out there. Some of it's great. Some of it I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But it's all out there and available to you. And it can be a little overwhelming to navigate sometimes. And so you want to always be asking questions, finding out information, and knowing that you have choices. You have choices and you want to be informed when you make those choices. Don't just pick something because it was handed to you and it was made available to you. The nice thing is you all as students are protected now because of the Credit Card Act of 2009. When I was on campus, you could get offered a pizza with your credit card. It was so easy to get a credit card. It was so easy to access credit. But because of the Credit Card Act, there are certain rules that protect you from that. But there's still a lot out there, and all of it's not great. So you want to take heed. Some things that I always recommend for students, you always want at least one savings account, a general one. You want a checking account that doesn't charge you fees, because there's too many out there that don't. You don't have to get a fee charged to you unnecessarily. When I say doesn't charge you fees, I mean if you go negative in your account, you may have to pay a fee. I mean fees to hold your money in your account. You want to have, if you're going to have a credit card as students, because of your credit score when you first turn 18, you should not have to pay more than 12% for a credit card. Even as a new student, you should not go over 12%. There's too many tools out there. When it comes to auto loans, same thing. You can get a low rate even as a student. There are first-time auto loans out there. And so if you ever have questions about any of those kind of things, even if you're not a member of Wright-Patt, what I will share with you is feel free to pop in and ask. They're there to answer your questions. They're not just there to open accounts. Our team on campus is here to answer those kind of questions. You know, I'm thinking about an account, what should I do? You can also look online. I always Google like rate calculators, loan calculators, compare loan rates. What kind of loan rate should a student get? You can look up all of that stuff, and there are several sites that will provide that to you. And usually the top 3 are pretty reputable. And I don't mean the ones where they purchase ads, the top 3 sites usually. Bankrate.com is a good place to find information on what's a good rate for different tools. But you want to know that you have choices, and there's so much out there. When it comes to financial institutions, the one thing you want to understand is that there is a difference between a credit union and bank. There's actually a couple of differences. And can anybody share with me what those are? What a few of those differences might be between a credit union and a bank. I know one person who can. Anybody share one difference between a credit union and a bank?
You're a member.
You're a member at a credit union. So banks are for-profit organizations. Banks are run by a couple of stockholders that said, we're going to invest in this company to uplift it. When the company does well, when the bank does well, the owners of the stockholders, do well. Our members at a credit union are our owners. So basically, credit unions got started in most cases to fill a need in a community or things like that. Different member owners came together to put money in, and as they put money in, money is available to now loan out to help other members. That's the way the credit union works. We work in what's called a cooperative. We cooperate to help each other meet our goals. Because of the whole members or owners, when the credit union does well and profits, the members are who get the money back. That may be in a rate change, that may be in a low fee, it may be in what we just did at Wright-Patt this year, which was actually put money, cash back in our member savings accounts because we had excess money to do it. So that different credit unions do it differently, but that's another difference. Members are owners. The other thing is that credit unions are not for profit. So like I said, credit unions are usually brought into existence because there's a need that comes up, and so a group of people band together. At Wright-Patt, what would you assume, where do you assume we started? Where do you think we got our start? Wright-Patt Credit Union. Based on our name. The base, right? So we got our start in 1932, back when a group of workers were doing their day-to-day. Back then, if you didn't work, you didn't get paid. There was no leave, there's no short-term disability. You're either on the clock and get paid, or you're off the clock and you don't get paid. A worker fell ill, couldn't work, got behind on his bills. His friends that worked with him said, let's put a quarter in and donate it to him to help he and his family get by. When he got better, he vowed to pay that back. That was the first Wright-Patt Credit Union loan. And that's kind of how credit unions happen. Someone has a need, someone comes up with the bright idea to meet it, they think it's cool, it works. After that, everyone in that department continued to put a quarter in per paycheck. And if someone needed money, they borrowed it. When they were not in need, they put it back. Those were our first loans at Wright-Patt Credit Union. And even though it's years later and we're sophisticated, we have personal intelligence, that's still kind of the way credit unions work. And so that's really cool. And this is the one thing I do get excited about with credit unions, because credit unions are movement driven and health driven. The third thing that makes us different is even though we're very local, and sometimes people are like, you're too local, you can't serve us on a national level. Because credit unions are cooperatives, we actually cooperate and work together with other credit unions all around the world to be able to make sure members can access their accounts. So if you're in California, you can still access 95% of your financial needs as if you were right here on campus. And that's because of the cooperative nature of what we do. It's kind of like going into Burger King and saying, I want a Big Mac. You could do that with credit unions. You can't really do that with banks. And so that's another really big difference, because when you leave campus and you're out in the world doing whatever, your credit union can follow you. We're not regional necessarily. You can still access all of your business as if you were right on campus. And so that's a big thing that credit unions have always prided ourselves on. We try to work together because it is about fulfilling the financial needs of the community that we serve. So those are kind of the big differences. Up to this point, do you guys have any questions about an early start is a good start and you've got choices? Any questions, thoughts, comments? Okay. So, these are just a few resources. As I said, when it comes to you've got choices, you also have choices on the resources that you use to manage your money. These are just a few that I like to share. You all have a website that we worked with Wright State to refresh called respectyourmoney.com. There are tips and tools and articles out there. How many of you have heard of Grad Ready? Grad Ready is actually something Wright State offers to all students. It's free. You can actually go online and log in. You can find out information on how much money you owe in student loans. It will put it all in front of you. You can watch videos, take quizzes, all kinds of information. But I think the coolest tool on there is that you can find out how much student loan debt you offer. If whoever is in here has student loan debt, do you know how much you owe right now? If I had to ask you how much student loan debt do you have, could you quote it out to me quickly? Okay, good. Because there's actually numbers that show a lot of students aren't aware. They may know how much they took out for the semester, but if I say how much cumulatively have you taken out student loan debt, a lot of people aren't sure. And student loan debt continues to grow. We know that it's actually looked at as good debt, but any debt where we don't know how much of it we have is not good debt. So it's really important to know, and that's a site where you can log in and find out that information. Savvy Money is a tool you can find on Respect Your Money. Actually, all of these you can find links out there from Respect Your Money. And then Credit Karma. Have you all heard of Credit Karma? On the lovely commercials. So Credit Karma is a commercial tool, but I always tell students it's not necessarily that it's the best thing out there, but right now, as an access to receiving your credit score for free and some reasons why your score may look like it, it is one of the better tools out there. I do always note that Credit Karma gives you a tool, a score that's going to look different than what you would get from us at a credit union. And that's because it uses a different scoring model. We use what's called the FICO score, which is the official Fair Isaac Corporation score. However, they don't necessarily use the same scoring models that we use, but it is very close. And I always tell students, here's the important thing, 3 things you want to know about your credit. When you turn 18, if you think about your credit as your GPA, you've got a C average. We don't know enough about you to fail you, but we don't know enough about you to give you an A+. Credit always looks at how much we can manage risk, how much you manage risk. And so it's kind of like a new friendship. If I don't know a lot about you, I can't really judge whether or not you're going to do a good job with our friendship. The longer I know you and you do good things, I can up your grade. If I know you and you do bad things, I can lower your grade. And the one thing about credit, just like a GPA, it goes down a lot more quickly than it would go up. So you want to always work on keeping it at a healthy space. But credit manages risk. And so Credit Karma is a good place to keep up ongoing with your credit score and being aware. Because I'd like to tell students that your credit is the one way that, people period, one way that people that don't know a lot about you can gauge and make decisions on you. So credit is used to determine, your credit score is often used to determine employment opportunities, obviously lending opportunities, in some cases auto insurance opportunities, and it can get you access or denial to any and all of those things. Because again, the company wants to know how risky you are to either do the job they needed you to do, to take out the loan they wanted to give you, whatever it is, they want to know. And so that credit score manages that risk. It gives them a score, a grade to your risk. And so you want to understand that, especially as you're transitioning off of campus, this is the one thing, and I'm not here to say whether that's right or wrong, but be aware it's the one thing that is in some cases the determining factor to opt you in or opt you out of opportunities. And so you want to know and be aware of what other people are seeing. And if you see anything wrong, you want to work to correct that quickly. And so that's a tool that can help you do that. There's also a website, it's the official site for the actual credit report, which is just an information, like a report card of your financial activity. There's one site that is the official government hosted and approved site. Does anybody know what that is? It might be. It is annualcreditreport.com. There you can access all 3 credit reports. There are 3 bureaus that report on an ongoing basis about your finances. You can access your information there from each report, each one once a year. So you can actually check your credit report for free at least 3 times a year. And so that's another place that's important to check, because you want to know what people are saying about you financially, because it impacts you well beyond your finances. Number 3, spend in order. So the big B word always gets a turn down nose for me when I use budget. People just look at me like I'm silly. So I won't call it a budget, but I will encourage you to spend in order. I always tell people, spend in this order: must have, then need to haves, and then nice to haves. If you don't do anything else, I guarantee you, if you think about your money in that order, you will be better off financially. Parents, adults, people going to the grocery store, write your grocery list in that order. It will keep you on budget. It's amazing. My Kohl's and groceries are my 2 downfalls, okay, I'll be honest, because those are 2 places I tend to overspend. But when I write my grocery list in order, if something doesn't meet the cutoff of the budget, I at least know I got what I had to have. But you want to organize your finances and your spending in this order. So you have must-haves, and there are 4 must-haves. What are the 4 must-haves?
Shelter, food.
Shelter, right? You have to have somewhere to live, somewhere. Food. Some form of transportation, and it could be these, right? Even if you're walking, you need reliable shoes on your feet. We've already decided in Ohio, you might need about 4 different types. So some type of clothing. And partially that's too because we live in America. You will go to jail if you're not properly clothed. And there's one more. We've got food, shelter, or no, I just said it. Food, shelter, transportation, and then clothing. Clothing is the 4th one. And so those 4 things are your must-haves. They're your must-haves because without them, your well-being is threatened. to the point of life and death in some instances, right? If we can't eat, at some point, the lack of nourishment could kill us. If we don't have shelter, at some point, we could be in an unsafe position. So the lack of those 4 things could threaten our well-being. Then you have your need to haves, and those are basically the things that support your must-haves. So if you have a house, it's the house home insurance, it's the utility bill, it's the water bill. If you or for the food, it's the type of food, or if it's the tools you need to cook the food. So the need to haves. You need to have these things for your well-being to be taken care of in your must-haves. The need to haves, if you don't have them for a while, you could be okay, but in the long run, they could probably threaten your well-being some as well. But they support your must-haves. And then we all know what nice to haves are, right? What are a few of your nice to haves?
Louis Vuitton purse.
Louis Vuitton purse, yes. We just had that discussion. What else?
Hair appointment.
Hair appointments, vacations. Right, we all have our nice to haves. And even, here's the way I want you to think about your nice to haves even on a more day to day. Your nice to haves may be things like, so your need to haves are toothpaste. Your nice to haves might be the type of shoe, the type of food. Because a lot of times we think of the nice to haves on the big scale, but it is things like hair appointments or extra treats, to grab a snack. It's those small nice to haves that actually threaten our must haves. It's usually not a big trip out of town that throws us off the budget. It's usually these small things we do every day that tend to threaten how we navigate our money. And so we want to always think about the nice to haves on the 3rd level. But I always tell people this, don't be afraid to have nice to haves. Just plan for them. Right? The reality is we're going to have nice to haves. We just want to plan for them. Our cell phone actually is a nice to have. Internet is actually a nice to have. Especially as a student, because here on campus there's free Wi-Fi. You can't really go too many places without free Wi-Fi. So internet is actually a nice to have, even though I know in my household that would cause great debate. In my household, it's must have, okay. But there's so much access to that now with technology that those kind of things are actually nice to have. So if you ever find yourself where what you have to spend, your expenses are exceeding the income that you have, the money you have to take care of it, planning and spending in order will help you kind of start to cut down. What can I get rid of? Or for the short term, what can I cut back on to help me get things back? I always tell people, if I were using the word budget, in the budget game, the way you win is to budget to 0. So everything you have, every dollar you have in income is accounted for in a bill or an expense or savings, whatever it is. It's all accounted for. The goal to win is 0. If I were using the budget word, which I'm not. But if I were using one, here's a simple one that I would share. And actually on the back of your sheet, there's just a little budget chart. Oh, this is just the whole thing about how your bills go up before they go down. Number 4, count the cost. Very important. In everything you do, right, in life, you count the cost. You have to always decide, what is the cost of me making a certain decision? Well, that goes for your money too. You always want to count the cost of a decision that you made. And what do I mean when I say count the cost? When I say count the cost, you want to understand, how will the decision I'm making today affect me tomorrow? Or give money the now later test. So who's had a real now later? Got 1, a real one, got 2, got 3. And you know what I mean when I say a real one, because now they make these chewy now laters and they're good, but they're not the real now later. So tell me about a real now later.
You can put it in your mouth for a little bit and it'll wait a while before it actually melts away.
Yes, so the real now laters are actually really hard when you first start to eat them, and as you mentioned, over time it kind of melts away. But you can't bite into a real now later really hard. The whole name of it is you enjoy it now, you enjoy it later. So you really want to think of your money that way. How can I do what I'm doing wisely now so I can enjoy it now and enjoy it later? How can I make sure I don't bite into it too soon so it doesn't bite me back? Right? It's kind of the same way. So you want to always think about how you're taking care of money in that way. You also want to do what I call the 24 test. When it comes to making purchases, think about how that purchase is going to affect you. Now, in the next 24 hours, next 24 days, next 24 months, which is 2 years. Now, of course, if it's a cheeseburger and you're thinking about it 2 years from now, there's some other programs we can take care of for you for that. So I'm not talking about teeny tiny purchases on that far out, but when the larger the purchase, make your 24s go out even further. How does this purchase affect me with the 24 test? Always count the cost. You want to count the cost when it comes to your day-to-day spending. And can anybody tell me what this picture is expressing? Someone's dollar coffee turned into a $35 purchase. How did that happen?
1 week of coffee.
It might have been 1 week of coffee, but this is one coffee. How did that happen?
It was paid with a credit.
So yep, so 2 ways it happened. It might have been paid with a credit card because of interest. They didn't pay it off, plus maybe some other purchases they made, and now they're paying $35. Or overdraft, right? They didn't have the extra dollar in there to begin with. They swiped a dollar coffee, and that dollar coffee has now cost them $35 in fees in overdraft. So you want to count the cost of not paying attention. You want to always pay attention to your accounts. I always tell students, people period. But again, I'm thinking about my son. He's got this debit card. We've got his account where he can't overdraft, but I want to treat it like he can. Listen, log into your account, look at your account. You have mobile, they have too many apps for that. Mobile banking, online banking, spend account. There's spend apps. There's all these apps that you can use to track how much you spend before you spend it. So you want to spend in order and you want to plan before you spend, right? And so yes, keep that dollar coffee only $1 by not getting overdraft fees from spending more than you have in your account. Because that's how it happens, and it happens way often. You want to count the cost of borrowing money. So when you get a loan, a student loan, an auto loan, a credit card, the cost of borrowing is what's called interest. It's what we charge in order for you to borrow the money. It's how the organization that's giving you the money makes money, by the interest that you pay on it. And so what we want to think about when we're borrowing money is not how much we have to pay month by month, but how much that looks to us in the big picture. Because a lot of times it's really easy, especially when you go to like auto dealerships, they'll tell you, oh, your payment's only going to be $120 a month. And in your mind you think, oh, I can do $120 a month, that's nothing. Well, here's an example of, we're going to say it's $120 a month, of a vehicle that costs $2,500. And I'm sure it wasn't Bumblebee up there, but that's my son's dream car. He thinks that when he can buy his own car, that's going to be the first one he's going to buy. It's not going to happen. But we, remember I say save for your dreams, right? So we dream together. So there's his dream car. $2,500, which is not that car. $2,500 is going to get you a car that hopefully has windows that roll up. Hopefully. And they might roll up like this, right? And so, funny story, my 10-year-old, we have a 98 Lumina that rolls up like this. The first time we brought it home, he asked, can I roll up the window? And we said, sure, roll it up. And he's looking around and he asked me how to roll the window. It was the funniest thing. I said, oh, life as a millennial baby, right? He did not know how to roll up that window. We got a good kick out of it. So anyway, so $2,500, 18% is not really unrealistic on some loans that you're going to get as a young adult. Car loans, you should be able to get something lower than that, but we'll just say for giggles, 18%. You're really going to pay for that loan, and we'll say a credit card, $2,500 on a credit card at 18%. You're going to pay for that to pay it off if you use the whole $2,500 and only make the minimum, which is what the company says you have to pay every month in order to stay in good standing with them. It's going to take you 34 years to pay that credit card off. And you're going to really pay almost $9,000 for that $2,500. I want to leave you guys with that thought. Is there anything that you have that you think you're going to be wanting to pay for 34 years that was only worth probably $1,200 when you paid $25 for it and spending almost $9,000 for it? I'll tell you this, I'm 35, I just turned 35 in December, and I have not one thing in my house that's other than my granny's couch, and even that is priceless. So I don't know that I pay for that, but to have it is wonderful, right? There's just not a whole lot that we're going to want to pay for that long for that cost. Even a home, the max mortgage is 30 years. So you want to think about that. If you make an extra $100 payment on there because you planned for it, you drop that time frame to 3 years and just over $3,000. So you want to always think about your loans in how can I pay more, because paying more has the perks, or really at least understand how much you're really paying for the loans that you get. There are loan calculators, like I said, bankrate.com has good ones. We have them on Wright-Patt's website. There's some on Respect Your Money where you can calculate how much you're really going to pay to take out a loan and borrow money. You want to understand that, you want to stay on top of that, and you want to always count that cost. So, with that said, do you all have any questions or any thoughts for me? I know, so those are my five things I wish I would have listened to in college. And oh, that's just my picture about student loan debt.
I got a question.
Yes.
What's the youngest that students can get a checking account or a savings account? Like, would they have a little debit card or something like that?
Good question. So for a savings account, you can actually get a savings, depending on the institution. I can speak on Wright-Patt. You can actually get a savings account at Wright-Patt. You can get what's called a custodial account, where it's in the child's name, but the parent has control over it at any age. At 11, that's when we start to recommend if you want to just get what was called a true saver account, and even then it has a joint to it if there's going to be an ATM or debit card. Checking account, 16. And the same thing, if you have a debit card linked to it, they are going to have a parent be joint on that account. And then at 18, I believe you can transition it into where the student is independent on the account. Yeah, good question.
I have a question.
Yes.
If a student opens an account at the age of 16, you mentioned, I think, that the parent has to be on the account?
Yes.
Until they get scored for the first time, I don't know if other banks do that, but does your bank rate that amount of time of 16, let's say, as you mentioned, the first time they check the credit score, or anything, for all the activities in the checking account, or the checking account does not apply to that?
As far as credit opportunities, the checking account does not apply to that, and that's just from federal law. However, a lot of times what parents will do to start to build their child's score, even though they won't get it until 18 and a half, if you put a child on a credit card or an auto loan as a co-signer, has to be a co-signer, a joint owner, meaning they're technically jointly responsible for it. In that case, that activity will potentially be counted, and when their score comes up at 18 and a half, it could show that as impact. But other than that, the checking account itself today has no impact on credit scores. There is a company out in California, SoFi, who is working on potentially checking accounts, rental and utilities, those type of things actually being considered in a scoring model for young adults, because typically those are the type of responsibilities they've had up until that point and how they handle their checking account and things. But today that's not widely used. So, yeah.
So what's the earliest that someone can open credit cards?
The earliest is 18, and at that point, because the Credit Card Act, though, they do have to either show proof of their certain level of income, and it's pretty high, or a cosigner until they're 21. And that's the Protective Act that came out in 09, because there was a lot of predatory credit card lending. The 18. Good question. Any other questions? Well, I know I shared a lot, and like I said, this is always like a quick little download, but if you ever come up with a question, feel free to pop in, shoot us an email, respectyourmoney@WPCU. I'm always there waiting to answer fun questions, because I'm weird like that, and it's fun for me. But if you ever have a question, feel free to stop in. I thank you guys for spending lunch with us. If you didn't grab something, please feel free to. And if you think of something in the future, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You should have a TED Talk.
I should have a TED Talk? Oh, that would be fun.
Are you on YouTube already?
So this year we'll start to post our stuff on YouTube.
That's
We
good.
haven't been, we're gonna start doing webinars. We haven't, like when we go out and do seminars, we haven't recorded them.
Mm-hmm.
So this year we're gonna start recording.
All right, that'd be a great idea.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have evaluations in the back, on the back table, so please, before you leave, please fill out the evaluations. There is plenty of food that is in the bag that we don't want to take with us, so please take that as well. Also, the presentation for the CoSM Cafe for Ivy and for all of them that we've had this semester is going to be on the CoSM YouTube channel that we have. So you will be able to go in and check, and we'll push the YouTube channel so students will be able to watch. Okay? And then as you're leaving, there is a bucket right outside that has goodies in plastic bags. Please take one of the plastic bags as you leave. All right? So thank you for coming. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.